There is a powerful, almost forgotten technique that can rekindle the memory of your soul and reveal who you truly are. But why does no one talk about it? Perhaps because the simplicity of this practice contradicts everything we've been conditioned to believe. In a world that teaches us to seek answers outside of ourselves, the forbidden technique invites us to look within, deeply, without illusions. Imagine for a moment that your entire life has been built upon a set of beliefs, labels, and identifications that do not belong to your true essence. And what if I told you that, behind all these layers, there is an authentic, untouched, and eternal you? This technique, far from being a mystical ritual or an ancient secret, is a method of deep self-observation, a portal to what we truly are when the mind quiets and distractions fade away. Today you will discover what is truly being hidden from you, not by external forces, but by the very veil of the conditioned mind. Prepare yourself for a journey of no return, where the only guide is your own presence. Let us explore the depths of consciousness and reveal what has always been there, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Are you ready to remember who you really are? Then stay with me. The path to truth begins now. Why has humanity forgotten who it really is? Since the beginning of time, humanity has sought answers to essential questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? Where are we going? Yet as we advance in external knowledge, it seems we drift further away from our inner essence. Most people live under a carefully constructed veil of illusions, a tangle of beliefs, expectations, and conditioning that obscures the truth about who we really are. But how did we get to this point? Throughout the centuries, we were taught to look outward. From childhood, we are guided to seek validation in the external world, in the opinions of others, in material success, in social approval. This cycle makes us believe that our identity is tied to what we own, what we do, or what others think of us. Thus, we forget that the true essence is not in what we acquire or achieve, but in what remains when everything is stripped away. The system we live in also plays a crucial role in this forgetfulness. Society conditions us to follow predetermined patterns, to compete, to compare, to constantly seek something outside ourselves. This cycle creates a constant state of dissatisfaction, as if we are always incomplete, always searching for something that will bring us the long-desired sense of fulfillment. But that something never arrives, because what we truly seek is not outside. It's within. Furthermore, there is an even deeper aspect that contributes to this forgetfulness: fear. Remembering who we truly are means letting go of the masks we have built throughout life, and that can be terrifying. Who will we be without the labels? Who will we be without the stories we tell ourselves? The mind fears the void, fears the unknown. Thus, it constructs barriers, creates distractions, keeps us busy to avoid the direct confrontation with our true self. This disconnection from our essence is also fueled by excessive identification with the mind. The mind is a powerful mechanism, but also a constant source of distractions and illusions. It entangles us in endless thoughts, in a continuous flow of ideas, worries, and memories. And in this mental whirlwind, the voice of the soul becomes almost inaudible. We become so identified with our thoughts that we start to believe we are them. But are we? The key to understanding why we forget who we are lies precisely in the identification with these thoughts. When we believe we are the mind, we begin to live reactively, trapped in cycles of desire, fear, and dissatisfaction. But if we can observe our thoughts without identifying with them, we start to notice something fundamental. There is a space of pure presence beyond the mind. That space is our true essence. Imagine for a moment that your consciousness is like a vast open sky. Thoughts are passing clouds. When you are so focused on the clouds, you forget the vast clear sky that has always been there. Similarly, when we are fully immersed in thoughts, we forget the vastness of our essence. The forbidden technique we are going to explore is precisely a process of dissolving these clouds, of silencing the mind so that the inner sky can be revealed. Thus, the forgetting of our true essence was not a single event. It was a gradual process, an accumulation of conditioning, fears, and distractions that diverted our attention from what truly matters. But the good news is that the way back is always available. We do not need to acquire anything new, learn something external, or follow a complex practice. We simply need to be still, observe, and allow our lost essence to reveal itself. What is the forbidden technique? The forbidden technique. The very name sparks curiosity, mystery, even a sense of caution. But contrary to what many might imagine, this technique does not involve secret mantras, mystical rituals, or esoteric practices. It is, in fact, the simplest practice, and at the same time, the most powerful one that exists. And that is why it was forgotten, neglected, and in certain contexts, even considered forbidden. But what is this technique really? It is a method of deep self-observation, an intentional process of silencing the mind. It is not about traditional meditation, nor visualizations or repetitions of affirmations. It is something much more subtle but infinitely more transformative. The technique involves turning inward and simply observing, without judging, without interfering, without trying to change what is there. Imagine you are sitting in front of a crystal clear lake. The surface is filled with ripples and whirlpools caused by external winds. These winds represent thoughts, emotions, and conditioning. The forbidden technique is the act of ceasing the wind, of remaining in absolute silence until the surface of the water begins to calm. And as the water settles, something extraordinary starts to happen. You begin to see the bottom of the lake. The practice of deep self-observation is similar. When the mind quiets, the superficial layers begin to dissolve, and what emerges is the true essence, the memory of the soul. This essence is not composed of fleeting thoughts or emotions, but of a silent presence, a state of pure consciousness. Why was this technique considered forbidden? Because it contradicts everything we were taught to do. From childhood, we are programmed to seek answers outside ourselves. We seek validation in others, knowledge in books, answers from gurus and masters. But the forbidden technique teaches us to look where no one guided us to look, within. And that is precisely where the great danger lies, for those who want to keep humanity asleep. When you begin to observe without interference, without identifying with thoughts, without being carried away by the incessant flow of the mind, something profoundly transformative occurs. You start to realize that you are not the mind, not the emotions, not the stories you told yourself throughout life. You are the presence that observes all of it. And that realization is liberating. The forbidden technique is a process of disidentification, a path back to the primordial essence. It is not a new method, nor a hidden secret. It has always been available but was devalued, distorted, labeled as dangerous or irrelevant. Because by practicing it, you begin to break the chains of illusions, to see beyond conditioning, and consequently, to access a level of consciousness that cannot be controlled or manipulated. Make no mistake, the technique is not an extraordinary event, a mystical experience, or a spiritual ecstasy. It is silent, subtle, almost imperceptible, but it is precisely in the silence that its power resides. When you quiet the mind and observe without judgment, the memories of the soul begin to emerge. Fragments of what you truly are start to reveal themselves. It is as if the fog begins to lift, revealing a long-forgotten landscape. But here's the crucial point. This technique cannot be forced. It does not involve effort, but surrender. It does not involve struggle, but acceptance. The more you try to understand, control, or manipulate the process, the farther you get from the true experience. The forbidden technique is the act of allowing everything to be as it is, without resistance, without attachment, without haste. And as the mind surrenders, the silence deepens. And in that silence, you begin to hear the voice of your soul. It is not an audible voice. It is not words. It is a sense of presence, a state of being that transcends time and space. And that is where the true remembrance begins. How does the technique activate the memory of the soul? The forbidden technique is, at its core, a portal to the memory of the soul. But to understand how it truly activates this profound remembrance, it is essential to comprehend what the memory of the soul is and where it is stored. Throughout life, we are conditioned to believe that our memories are contained solely in the mind, in thoughts and recollections that arise from past events. However, the memory of the soul goes beyond that. It is not bound to linear time, stories, or the labels we accumulate. It is recorded in a deeper space, a level of consciousness that transcends the rational mind. Imagine the soul as a vast ocean. The surface is filled with restless waves, representing the thoughts, emotions, and daily distractions. But in the depths, the waters are serene, calm, untouched. It is in these depths that the memory of the soul resides, a space where everything we truly are is recorded in the form of pure essence. When the mind is in constant motion, it is impossible to access these deep waters. The surface waves create so much noise that we cannot hear the whispers of the soul. The forbidden technique acts precisely at this point. It does not involve a mental effort to recall something specific. Instead, it is a process of stillness, of gradually quieting the mind, allowing the waves to settle and the surface of consciousness to become as clear as a mirror. In this state, the mind no longer interferes, judges, or analyzes. It becomes a passive observer, a receptacle for what lies beyond itself. The memory of the soul begins to emerge subtly, not as thoughts or clear images, but as sensations, impressions, glimpses of what has always been there, waiting to be recognized. It may arise as a profound feeling of familiarity, a déjà vu that cannot be rationally explained, or as a sense of being deeply connected to something greater, as if a timeless memory is being awakened. Another important aspect is that the technique works by dissolving layers of conditioning that obscure the memory of the soul. From birth, we are programmed with beliefs, behavior patterns, and identities that overlay our true essence. These layers are like shells that prevent the inner light from fully shining. When the mind quiets, these shells begin to dissolve, layer by layer, revealing the essence that has always been there, intact. This process of activating the memory of the soul is not immediate. It occurs gradually, like a flame that gains intensity as the excess ashes are removed. The constant practice of the technique allows perception to deepen, distractions to lose strength, and the authentic self to begin to emerge. But here's a crucial point. The memory of the soul is not accessed through effort or the attempt to control the process. The more one tries to recall something specific, the more the mind interferes, creating illusory images and fantasies that do not belong to the essence. That is why the technique consists of observing without intention, without expectation, without the desire to achieve a result. It is a process of surrender, a state of letting go. And why is this so powerful? Because when the mind is in a state of pure presence, time ceases to exist. The past, present, and future merge into a single moment. And it is at this point that the memory of the soul can be accessed, not as a series of linear events, but as a unified field of experiences, impressions, and essential truths. The memory of the soul is not composed of specific stories or events. It is the recollection of our primordial nature, the state of being that existed before the layers of conditioning formed. It is the remembrance of who we are beyond roles, beyond names, beyond the stories we tell ourselves. And when this memory awakens, something profound begins to happen. The worldview changes, the perception of reality expands, and the sense of connection with the whole intensifies. Signs that you are about to remember who you truly are. When the forbidden technique begins to take effect, something profoundly subtle and, at the same time, extraordinary starts to happen. It is not an explosive event or a grand mystical experience. On the contrary, the remembrance of who you truly are manifests quietly, almost imperceptibly, but with undeniable power. This process does not follow a straight line. It is marked by signs that, at first glance, may seem strange or disconnected, but are actually clear indications that the layers of illusion are beginning to dissolve. One of the first signs is the intensification of dreams. Suddenly, dreams become more vivid, intense, filled with symbols and messages that seem to carry hidden meaning. It is as if the unconscious is communicating directly with the conscious mind, bringing to the surface fragments of memories that were dormant. These dreams may be scenes from past lives, archetypal images, or even encounters with unknown figures that evoke an inexplicable feeling of familiarity. What once seemed like just a dream now emerges as a whisper from the soul, a reminder that there is much more than what the eyes can see. Another common sign is the sensation of déjà vu, but not as a mere fleeting feeling. Suddenly, you start to feel that you have lived certain situations before, that you have met specific people or been in certain places, even if rationally it seems impossible. This sensation can be unsettling, as the mind cannot find a logical explanation. However, what is happening is an alignment between the present consciousness and the memory of the soul. It is as if layers of time are overlapping, allowing you to access fragments of other experiences, other times, and other spaces. Additionally, there is a gradual awakening of intuition. The inner voice becomes clearer, more assertive, as if trying to guide you beyond the conditioned mind. This voice is not accompanied by doubts or hesitations. It is serene, firm, and precise. You begin to feel a call to look within, to question old beliefs, to deconstruct the stories you have told yourself for years. This intuitive awakening can be unsettling, as the mind accustomed to controlling everything is challenged by an inner presence that does not follow conventional logic. But this presence is the essence, the soul trying to communicate directly with the conscious mind. Another sign is the emergence of emotions, seemingly without cause. Suddenly, deep feelings of sadness, nostalgia, or even ecstasy begin to arise out of nowhere. These emotional states seem to have no external trigger, but are actually fragments of the soul's memories being released as the layers of conditioning start to dissolve. It is as if the forbidden technique is opening internal doors that have been locked for a long time, allowing repressed or forgotten emotions to finally find a path to be expressed and integrated. The perception of the external world also begins to change. Things that once went unnoticed now seem to carry special meaning. Small details like a sunset, a bird song, or the sound of the wind begin to evoke a profound sense of connection, as if nature itself were communicating with you. This feeling of being connected with everything around you is not an illusion. It is a reflection of inner alignment, a clear sign that the barriers between the mind and the essence are beginning to dissolve. Finally, there is an inexplicable sense of being guided. Synchronistic events start happening more frequently. People appear in your life with messages or teachings that seem to be tailor-made for your current moment. Books, conversations, or seemingly random situations begin to carry a deep meaning, as if the universe were sending signs for you to continue following the path of self-observation. This feeling of being guided is not a product of imagination. It is the soul taking the reins, leading you closer to the essential truth. These signs are not coincidences or isolated events. They are clear indications that the forbidden technique is starting to take effect, that the layers of illusion are disintegrating, and that the true essence is emerging from the depths. The more you remain in this state of pure observation, the more intense and frequent these signs become. And the more you allow yourself to experience them without judgment, the closer you come to remembering who you truly are. The soul is awakening, and the path back to the essence is being revealed. The question now is, are you willing to follow this path to the end? The forbidden practice. How to activate the technique in 5 steps. The forbidden practice is an invitation to dive into the depths of the self, a return to the original state of consciousness, where the mind quiets and the essence emerges. Although it seems simple, it requires a level of surrender that most people are not accustomed to experiencing. It is a process of deep self-observation, a path of inner silence that allows access to the most subtle layers of the soul. To activate the technique, the first step is to choose a calm space, free from distractions. This place doesn't need to be special or sacred, but it must be a setting where you feel safe to close your eyes and turn inward. The practice begins with the act of sitting comfortably, keeping the spine straight to allow energy to flow freely. The body should be relaxed, but the mind must remain awake, present, and attentive. The second step involves connecting with the center of the heart. Close your eyes and place your hands at the center of your chest, exactly where the physical heart beats. Feel the presence of your heart, not just as an organ pumping blood, but as an energetic portal that connects the mind to the essence. Breathe deeply, inhaling and exhaling slowly and consciously, letting each breath deepen your connection with your own heart. As the breath stabilizes, the third step emerges, visualizing a golden light at the center of the chest. This light is not something external. It is the manifestation of your own essence, a reflection of your divine presence. Imagine this light slowly expanding, radiating from the heart throughout the entire body. Feel this light filling every cell, every inner space, dissolving any tension or resistance. The more you connect with this light, the more the mind begins to calm down, allowing perception to deepen. The fourth step is the most subtle and, at the same time, the most powerful. With the mind quieted and the heart expanding, it is time to begin questioning. But it is not about questioning from the rational mind. Instead, it is about allowing the essence to respond. Mentally whisper, "Who am I without the thoughts? Who am I beyond the mind?" Let these questions resonate internally without trying to answer, without seeking logic or explanation. Just observe what arises. It could be a feeling, an image, a sensation, or even a profound silence. The goal here is not to find a clear answer, but to allow the inner space to expand, creating an opening for the essential truth to begin to emerge. The fifth and final step is to remain in this state for at least 10 minutes. This is when the practice truly begins to take effect. The mind may try to interfere, bringing thoughts, memories, or distractions. But the instruction is clear. Observe without identifying. Become the passive observer, the one who witnesses everything without judging, without analyzing, without interfering. The more you remain in this state of pure observation, the more the superficial layers of the mind begin to dissolve, revealing what was concealed. At the end of the practice, do not rush to open your eyes or immediately return to the external world. Stay for a few moments in this state of silent presence, integrating everything that was experienced. Feel the body, the breath, the space around you. And as you open your eyes, carry with you the feeling of being more present, more centered, more connected to your essence. This practice is not a magical ritual or a miraculous technique. It is a process of returning to the natural state of being, a path of detachment from mental identifications and a reunion with the pure essence. Over time, the practice becomes less of a conscious effort and more of a natural state of being, where presence becomes the central point of experience. And when that happens, the memory of the soul begins to emerge spontaneously, bringing with it the remembrance of what we have always been but forgotten along the journey. Are you willing to allow yourself this return? Then begin now. Close your eyes and let the truth of your essence begin to emerge. The fatal mistake most people make when practicing the technique. The forbidden technique is simple in its essence, but profoundly challenging in its practice. And it is precisely in this apparent simplicity that the greatest obstacle lies for those attempting to access it. The fatal mistake most people make when practicing the technique is trying to force a specific outcome, expecting mystical experiences, extraordinary visions, or spectacular revelations. The mind, accustomed to seeking tangible rewards and palpable results, tries to turn a subtle and silent process into an extraordinary event. But this approach is a mistake that blocks the true power of the technique. When the mind enters the practice with the expectation of seeing lights, hearing voices, or accessing past memories explicitly, it creates an environment of tension, anxiety, and control. Instead of allowing the true essence to reveal itself naturally and spontaneously, the person begins to seek external signs that can confirm the technique is working. This desire for immediate results is, in fact, a reflection of the ego, which attempts to turn the inner experience into a mental spectacle, a conquest to be achieved. However, the technique does not operate from the ego. It flourishes precisely in the space of detachment, where there is no intention to achieve anything specific, only the surrender to the present moment. Another common mistake is believing that the practice involves an altered state of consciousness, a kind of trance or spiritual ecstasy. Many sit down to practice expecting something grand to happen, that a clear and impactful vision will appear before their closed eyes. But the true practice is not a spectacular event. It is silent, subtle, almost imperceptible. The mind expects fireworks, but the essence speaks in whispers. And the more a person seeks a grand experience, the further they distance themselves from the real purpose of the technique, which is the return to the natural state of pure presence. Another mistake is trying to control the mind. Many believe that the goal is to empty the mind completely to achieve a state of absolute inner silence. But this approach creates inner conflict, for the mind cannot be forced to stop. The more one tries to control thoughts, the more they intensify. It is like trying to calm a turbulent lake by throwing stones into it. The true practice does not involve forcing the mind to be silent, but observing thoughts without identifying with them, allowing them to come and go without resistance. The expectation of finding clear and definitive answers is also a frequent mistake. The technique does not provide answers in the form of words or concepts. It reveals the essence in the form of presence, a state of being that transcends the rational mind. When a person insists on seeking mental answers, they remain trapped in the superficial level of the mind without accessing the depth where true remembrance occurs. The practice is not about understanding, but about perceiving. It is not about finding answers, but about dissolving questions. Finally, there is the mistake of trying to repeat past experiences. If in a previous practice the person felt a profound sense of peace or caught a glimpse of something deep, they may try to recreate that experience in subsequent practices. This is a fatal mistake, for each practice is unique. The attempt to repeat a previous experience is an act of attachment, a form of control that prevents the natural flow of the practice. The technique does not involve recreating the past, but being present in the now, without expectations, without comparisons, without memories. The forbidden practice is a process of detachment at all levels. Detachment from expectations, results, thoughts, past experiences. The more one tries to control, force, or manipulate the experience, the further they move away from the true essence of the practice. The key is surrender, allowing everything to be as it is, without interference, without desires, without expectations. And when this surrender happens, the true awakening begins to emerge, not as a spectacular event, but as a subtle return to pure presence, where the memory of the soul is revealed effortlessly, without haste, without fanfare. How to integrate the technique into daily life without getting lost in the ego? Integrating the forbidden technique into daily life is a process that goes beyond the formal practice. While the technique itself is essential for calming the mind and accessing the memory of the soul, the true transformation occurs when this silent presence is carried into everyday moments. However, there is a significant challenge: avoiding the ego's appropriation of the practice. The ego, always eager to control and dominate, can turn even an act of self-observation into a subtle trap of self-aggrandizement or distraction. The first step to integrating the technique without falling into the ego's traps is to keep the practice simple and unpretentious. When the mind starts seeking results or measuring progress, the ego takes control, creating unrealistic expectations and internal comparisons. Instead, the focus should be on the simplicity of the act of observing without the expectation of reaching a special or extraordinary state. The practice becomes an invitation to remain present in the now, without future projections or past recollections. Another crucial aspect is observing emotions throughout the day. After the formal practice of the technique, the mind tends to return to its habitual reactive state, identifying with thoughts and emotions. However, the integration of the practice involves cultivating continuous observation, even amidst daily activities. For instance, when an intense emotion like anger or frustration arises, instead of reacting automatically, the practitioner can simply observe the emotion, allowing it to manifest without judgment or resistance. This conscious observation prevents the ego from feeding on the emotion, gradually dissolving the layers that cover the essence. The practice of self-observation can also be extended to routine situations. During a conversation, for example, the ego often desires to dominate, interrupt, or impose itself. At that moment, the technique can be applied silently, bringing attention to the act of listening without reacting immediately. Silent presence allows the essence to observe internal dynamics without identification, creating a space of clarity and neutrality. Additionally, it is essential to recognize that the practice is not an isolated event. It does not begin and end at a specific time of day. It is a continuous state of presence, a perception that can be accessed at any moment, in any situation. In traffic, while waiting in line or during a repetitive task, the technique can be reactivated simply by bringing attention to the breath, to the heartbeat, or to the sensation of the body in space. This conscious presence prevents the ego from taking over the practice, keeping the focus on pure essence without distractions or identifications. However, one of the most subtle traps is the ego's tendency to identify itself as the practitioner of the technique. It may begin to create a spiritual identity, seeing itself as someone on a special path or possessing secret knowledge. This is a dangerous deviation because instead of dissolving the ego, the practice ends up strengthening it in a new form. To avoid this, it is essential to remember that the technique is not a path to becoming someone special, but a process of detachment from all identifications, including the spiritual identity. Another important point is the acceptance of the impermanence of inner experiences. During the practice, there may be moments of deep peace or clarity, but there can also be moments of emptiness, restlessness, or doubt. The ego tends to seek the repetition of pleasant experiences and avoid challenging ones, creating a cycle of attachment and aversion. Integrating the practice into daily life involves accepting each moment as it is, without trying to recreate the past or anticipate the future. Each instant is a unique opportunity to observe, detach, and return to the essence. Integrating the technique into the routine also involves the practice of detaching from mental narratives. Throughout the day, the mind constantly creates stories, judgments, criticisms, desires, regrets. The practice of conscious observation allows these narratives to be seen as passing clouds, without identification. When a thought arises, instead of diving into it, the practitioner can simply observe it, recognizing that it is just a transient phenomenon on the screen of consciousness. Finally, the practice of gratitude can be a powerful ally in integrating the technique. Gratitude not only elevates the vibrational frequency, but also dissolves the ego's tendency to focus on what is lacking or what has not been achieved. Instead of seeing the practice as a means to an end, gratitude allows each moment to be appreciated for what it is: a portal to the now, a return to the essence. Therefore, integrating the forbidden technique into daily life is a process of continuous detachment, silent observation, and full presence. It is not about achieving a special state or conquering something specific. It is about a return to the natural state of being, where the ego loses its power and the essence reveals itself as the boundless space of pure consciousness. And the more this practice is integrated into daily life, the more the memory of the soul begins to emerge, subtly, silently, like a breeze blowing effortlessly, reminding us of who we truly are. We have reached the end of our journey, but in truth, this is just the beginning. The forbidden technique was never truly forbidden. It was forgotten, covered by the layers of distractions and illusions that the mind constructs over a lifetime. Now you know that there are no complex secrets or magical formulas. The true awakening lies in the simplicity of self-observation, in the act of silencing the mind and allowing the essence to emerge. The more you practice, the more the memory of the soul begins to surface, revealing who you have always been, beyond thoughts, beyond stories. And now I want to know, did you make it to the end of this video? Then write in the comments, "I choose to remember who I truly am." This is your commitment to yourself, your initial step to integrate this practice into your daily life. Are you ready to continue this journey? The true transformation begins now.